Hey, it's Sonia, and welcome to the SMARTA Podcast.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Sonia Marta. You're listening to the SMARTA Podcast, and I'm honored to welcome today's guest. She's widely known as the Education Doctor, an award-winning educational consultant. Dr. Ellis has spent her career helping students, parents, and schools navigate one of the most critical journeys in life, the transition from high school to higher education. She's got an MBA from Dartmouth's Tufts School of Business, a PhD from Stanford University, and a career that bridges research, consulting, and hands-on guidance. Dr. Ellis brings unmatched expertise to the conversation, and she's giving her rare insight into the diverse cultures, opportunities, and challenges students face on campus. She also has a best-selling book, What to Know Before They Go, College Edition, and she has become a trusted guide for school leaders, counselors, parents, and caregivers looking to prepare teens for success beyond high school. Dr. Ellis has dedicated her work to ensuring that young people not only get to college, but thrive once they're there. Now, I cannot wait to begin this podcast with you. Dr. Pamela Ellis, welcome on the SMARTA Podcast. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on here.
Well, Sonia, it is an absolute pleasure for me to be here. I appreciate so very much what you do, and just thank you for inviting me to join you on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. As you could tell already in the green room, I'm just so excited to talk with you on everything that we're about to unpack because it's a very personal experience and a personal story that I'm going through right now. I'm 17.
Yeah.
It's almost October. Early decisions will open for the US and UCAS is already open. Personal statements are being written in my school this month. Let's see where this
Yeah.
conversation takes us.
It's going to take us on a journey for sure. And I hope that by the end, Sonia, you feel even more prepared and confident for those applications coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's where I want to take you first. Dr. Ellis, your journey spans Stanford, Dartmouth, and more than 500 college campus visits. For our listeners today, if you can talk directly with the person listening, what would you say would be the top 3 key takeaways if they spend all this time, all this 1 hour together with us?
Yeah, so that's a great place to start. So we're going to start from the end.
All right.
The first key takeaway is that the college process starts with the student. It doesn't start with the colleges. And I definitely want to unpack that a little bit more. A second key takeaway would be the importance of fit. And fit makes a difference in terms of where you'll be admitted, also where you'll thrive while you're there. And that includes even financial support and scholarships as well. So fit is very important in the college journey. And then the third takeaway would be to keep calm through the process. I know that oftentimes the college admissions process is just laden with so much stress.
Yes.
And people often think of it as, stress, and they bring that into the process. But it does not have to be that way at all. And there is a roadmap. There is a way of going about things and learning information that could support you with not being stressed throughout the process.
I love those. And we're going to talk directly about fit really, really soon. But first, I want to bring your attention to your book and talk a little more about what to know before they go.
Yes.
College edition, as you emphasize the importance of mindset. And if you've watched any of my episodes so far, as you mentioned, you know how much I love advice for teens, practical tips and habits.
Yes.
So what I want to know from you right now, Dr. Pamela Ellis, is why is it so critical for parents to get that mindset right before diving into that college prep process?
It really makes a difference, Sonia, in terms of the experience of the process in managing down the stress when you can start with thinking about your mindset and where you are on the journey. And it's a mindset for both the parents as well as for the teen. And so I start with, all of my students asking them about their why for college. And that's something that oftentimes you don't even think about, but it makes such a difference in terms of everything else that happens. Why is it that you want to go? Is it about career prep? Is it about meeting new people? Is it about having fun? That's all going to make a difference. And oftentimes the why for the parent is different than the why for the teen. And so just even discussing that helps the communication and the parent and the teen being on the same page. And then the second key mindset would be that the teen owns the process. And that can be a little bit tough, for parents, because I know for me, I'm a mom of 3, and the thought of, my kid owning it, and I'm thinking, okay, he's not that organized, or he's doing, he's late for things. I know. It's like, I'm going to let him take over. And it's like, yes, you do. The teen has to own the process. And that's a mindset shift for the parent as well as for the teen, because some teens don't want to own the process. They are completely comfortable with someone else doing it. And it's just like, no, you got to own it, because you're going to be the one going to college. You're going to be the one who is going to thrive when you're there. And that starts with recognizing that you own the process. You own it, and knowing what your why is, because that's going to play a role in everything with that application.
Completely agree with this one.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about how I was introduced to the whole university college admissions.
Yes, I want to hear it.
So my teacher in school, my, let's say, university counselor, always introduced the concept of university as, don't think about the country you're going to go to. That is completely irrelevant. Look and really do your research on the course you're taking. Because at the end of the day, those 3 years are going to be spent in that classroom rather than outside at a cafe near the university, let's say. And this links on to something that you say, that it's all about fit. Could you walk me through what fit really means in terms of academical fit, social fit, vocational, and financial? And why can also reduce stress?
Yeah, absolutely, Sonia. And just with what you shared in terms of what your counselor imparted to you is that first piece around the academic fit. We do start there because you will spend a great deal of your time in university with studies, but there's also these other components that will make a difference in terms of really thriving when you're there. Because let's face it, you can't study 24/7. You want to have fun. You want to meet people as well. And so with that, with the academic fit, that's really about what you want to study and also how you learn, because you can, what are you thinking about studying, for example?
Anything related to media and communications.
Okay, great. So with that, there'll be universities that will have large lecture halls. Some of them will have more small group discussions. So thinking about how you learn best, also thinking about what supports your learning. And so that would be part of that academic fit. The second fit would be the social fit. So just thinking about, how do you usually make friends, and how easy is it for you to make friends, especially if you're going to study in another country. You want to be able to make friends when you're there, and maybe there's certain activities that you enjoy where you can meet friends, and thinking about, does that university offer that for you? The third one is around the financial fit. That's important because there are, for example, universities here in the U.S. where they will offer scholarships for international students, some that don't. And so just, what is it going to take for university to be affordable for your family is the financial piece. And there are a number of options in that regard. The fourth factor is vocational. So thinking about what it is you want to do afterwards and how that university can help you with that. So perhaps they have an alumni network that's in countries where you see yourself living.
Yeah.
And so that would be part of that vocational fit. And then the fifth area of fit is cultural. And so for this, Sonia, oftentimes, people are stuck because they feel like, well, the cultural thing doesn't apply to me, but it does. When you think about the cultural piece, that is, how might you be different from the majority of students on campus? So the fact that you're from another country, if you go to a college in another country, that's a cultural difference. And so when you think about that, you want to have a sense of belonging and find community when you're in college. So that piece is so important. And it's all five factors that fit together. I don't talk about them in isolation at all. Five, and that's going to make the difference in you thriving when you're there.
Mhm. I want to add on to something that you
Yeah.
said, in particular about the cultural fit, because
Yeah.
I know Erin Myers, who wrote a whole entire book called The
Uh-huh.
Culture Map. And
Yes.
she talks exactly about what you touched upon, how culture differs if you want to go into the US, for instance, or the
Yeah.
Western Europe, and then Asia, because
Yeah.
Singapore was actually on my list of discovery
Really?
universities. And
Mm.
my mom went there. She was completely amazed by
Yeah.
the absolute architecture, the food, and
Yes.
when it came down to my day-to-day life and how it would
Mhm.
look like, whether I would go to
Yeah.
the US or to Singapore, one of the biggest things I actually underestimated and didn't even
Mhm.
consider would be that cultural fit, because
Yeah.
I like to consider myself as growing up in a US sort of culture. I just
Mhm.
am very extroverted and I just go up to a person and introduce myself. And, I think the perfect example for
Yeah.
this to help the listener now, if they're
Mhm.
struggling, whether they want to go, for instance, to Spain. I visited a Spain
Yeah.
university this summer. Just thinking about your commute to university. I'm a
Yeah.
person that takes a lot of public transport. In Spain, you just entered and it was like a full restaurant. You had people talking at different volumes. You've got people on their
Yes.
phone with,
Mhm.
loud music. So just
Yeah.
keeping that in mind is something that
Uh-huh.
I think can get easily discarded down to the bottom of the list, or of the,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Can we talk about thought leadership? Because it's a
Oh, yeah.
term that has become quite of a
Mhm.
buzzword.
Mhm.
How will I assume my story is unique compared to all of the other 5,000 applicants that are applying for the same seat as me?
Well, when you are telling your story, Sonia, you always focus in on one thing, one thing. And when you focus in on one thing, it is going to stand out because no one else can tell that story like you.
Yeah.
And so the key thing to think about in terms of your statement that you're writing and how to stand out is going to be focus in what you share. And with that focus is going to be the aspect of storytelling. And that's something oftentimes you don't get an opportunity to do in an academic writing, but in the college application essay, you can. And that's really what makes, your application come to life
Mhm.
is what you write in that statement and really tell about you. It has to have your authentic voice in it. And there's no better way to do that than to talk about one thing, and really being clear with that. And just to give you a little bit more of an example of how you would do that is even talking about the details that support, almost like a sensory experience when they're reading when the readers are reading your essay. That's what's going to help you with standing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to take myself back in time to freshman
Mhm.
year. The 4 years of high school are the foundation of what gets you a strong application and the yes that you're accepted into your dream college. Talk to me about first year, freshman year. What should families focus on during that first year of high school to ensure that A plus mindset mentality?
Yes, yes. The first thing is the social transition because that's so big in ninth grade and freshman year when students arrive. Oftentimes, they don't know other students at their high school. And so, really getting acclimated to the social milieu of that high school. That means getting to know teachers, getting to know your peers. And if you're in a school, let's say where you are taking public transit to get there, and there aren't kids that are from your neighborhood, actually, if there's an opportunity to do something intentional where you do spend time with them on a weekend, visiting as a way to build that relationship. Because oftentimes I feel like, in some regards, the inner personal gets a little bit muted because we do spend so much time on our phones and using
Yeah.
technology. And so it can feel a little uncomfortable making friends or really getting to know people outside of you doing it through an online experience. And so I really do encourage that in ninth grade. In a club, it could be not joining a club, but, just having a friend and learning how to be a friend. So that would be the key for ninth grade.
You said in regards of limiting your screen time, which I think is a universal
Yes,
challenge we all face
we
today,
all face,
is
yes.
my favorite way of incorporating
Uh-huh.
this thing into practical steps is Arthur C. Brooks, a Harvard
Yeah.
Business Review author and professor,
Mhm.
that says spend time being bored. And
Right.
this happened to me
Right.
last week when I was leaving my friend out from meeting and my phone
Mhm.
died. And I had to spend 40 minutes in the bus just
Yeah.
staring out the window. Can
Yeah,
I
and
tell
didn't it
you,
feel so just restorative?
and refreshing, and it just
Yes.
charged me with so much energy,
Yeah.
realizing that actually there's so much going around
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
just look up. And so moving on to
Yeah.
the second year of high school, sophomore year,
Mm.
which is all about exploring and discovering your personal interests.
Yes.
What advice would you have in particular for teens to do this in a way that fits best for them?
I think one thing is actually doing an interest inventory. A lot of schools offer those, and I don't know if students are really taking advantage of it. Sophomore year is a great time to do that because you've kind of learned more about the school experience and the social aspects of it. You've gotten into a groove with the rigor in your classes. And so really taking that time to explore what it is you want to do, because when you're in the second year, you're going to start getting more and more questions about what do you want to do when you
Yeah.
grow up, or what do you want to major in? And that can be a little bit annoying if you don't know. And
Mhm.
so actually taking the time to do one of those career interests inventories, and with the information that you learn from that, looking into a summer program that gives you an opportunity to learn more about that area, that can just be a game changer.
Also, I think with this interest inventory, it can go the other way, the flip way. You
Yeah.
definitely know what you want to do. Like I did.
Yeah.
I used to dream
Yeah.
about going at a creative writing major
Uh-huh.
and just learn about comparative literature. Then I found out about all the essays I had to write and not so much the stories. And I found out the podcast and I just flipped it round and found another new passion of mine that I
Yeah.
actually enjoy studying and
Exactly.
being tested
Exactly.
upon.
Yeah, I had this student who was thinking that he wanted to do engineering, and
Yeah.
that's usually a pretty common field
Yeah.
of interest. And he went to a summer program that had a component where it was engineering in the morning, and then the afternoon was another totally disparate area. So at the end of the summer when he came back, he was like, Dr. Pamela, I hate engineering. I'm not
Oh,
going to do that.
boy.
And it was like, something that's great to know now, because then you don't have to invest all of the time and energy looking
Yeah.
at colleges and engineering when you know that's something that you don't want to do. And so that saved him, a lot of heartache later. And so I think they're great opportunity just to explore that and figure it out for yourself. And trying something that's something you think you may want to do, you can confirm or disconfirm.
Yeah. And just following that mindset. Third year, junior year, this is where I remember
Yes.
everyone around my family, friends came asking me, where do you want to go to
You're gonna
university?
Yes.
And it was just completely messing me up because I didn't
Yeah.
grow up with a dream university. And
Mhm.
I just came around to switching my entire view of what I wanted to study. So I was in
Yeah.
an ambiguous situation,
Mhm.
and it's called the make or break year.
Yes.
What should families prioritize during this year, especially considering you mentioned summer school
Right.
programs?
Yeah, the priority in junior year especially is researching the colleges. And by researching, I really do mean researching. We actually give our students a rubric or a guide sheet around how to research colleges. And we have a database that they can use to find out information about that college at a deeper level than they would just at a glance or looking at a website or hearing about it from a friend. And what that does, Sonia, is it really helps students to consider what they want and what they don't want in a college. And that is so important to do. The thing is, the way we have this guide sheet set up with the depth of information that they are learning about these colleges, it also helps them with writing those additional essays for why that college. But with that research that they're doing, the other piece that's oftentimes overlooked, and I know that sometimes when you're at a distance, it's not possible, but actually doing a campus visit. I highly recommend a campus visit. And those are best done in junior year, usually in the spring of junior year, doing that campus visit. So with that research and the visiting as a way to further vet that college and evaluate, whether or not it really is a fit, that is the most important in junior year. And I just can't stress it enough, because I will every now and again, just even recently, I had a student who was a senior that started with us. And we usually have maybe one or two seats for seniors that we will take for those who just hadn't heard of us before and they need assistance in the process. And the list is just off. I don't know how else to say it, but his list is just off. Now, what that then does when the list is off, when it's not even vetted, and I think the way that he and his dad came up with the list was just to look at what major I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's all well and good to look at colleges based on the major, but his transcript doesn't match with that major in terms of having the coursework for the major. And so he's now, at the tail end of this in senior year. And it's just like, we can't really do any applications without getting the list right, because it's going to be some different colleges than the ones that you have on here, because none of these are vetted and you're not going to be able to write about them. If there is a supplemental essay to write, it's going to be too challenging to write. It's like, my team and I, we've worked with countless students. We know a lot of colleges, and I know, over 500 of them personally from having visited, but it's just like, I can't write this for you. It has to come from the heart. So you need to know something about these colleges. So the list is just so important. And doing that in junior year can really help with just what you have to do in the way of applying in senior year. And one last thing I'll say, when you're researching the college in junior year, one of the things we ask students to do every year is to look at what the requirements are.
Yeah.
So if you see that in junior year, like I had a student who was interested in doing computer science. So he was researching the colleges, and it turns out that this college that he's very interested in for computer science requires physics. He hadn't taken physics. So it's like, something? That's great to know now, because then you can take it in senior year and you'll be admissible. If you don't know that in junior year, like this student I just shared, it's a little bit too late to change his courses. It's like you're in pre-calc. Engineering requires calculus for your colleges on your list. So, you can't take a calculus class at this point. So we got to do something different. So that's a long-winded way of just saying, getting the list right.
And you cannot stress this enough, because I've had firsthand experience of being on your naughty list. I did not start that list in junior year. I just started 2 weeks ago when we came back to school. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Well, Sonia, it's okay. I know that's a lot of students do it that way.
Yeah, you're probably looking at me like one of those students you probably should have wished you would have advised earlier. But moving on, you've touched upon the common mistakes like this one that we should avoid in senior year.
Yeah.
Last year is like a race to just hand in everything, decide whether you're going regular decision, early decision, one or two.
Yeah.
Talk to me rather about the one thing that we should be aiming for, since you already mentioned some common mistakes that we should be doing in senior year.
In senior year, I think it's being strategic about the timing of when you apply. And that can be a tough decision, because your colleges may have different deadlines or different rules around those deadlines that impact which colleges you can apply to when. And so that takes a little bit of time to really think through. And one of the things, Sonia, that I will encourage students to do, and we talk about it even at the end of junior year, but certainly in senior year, is prioritizing and really ranking that list.
Yeah.
And so if this college at the top of your list only has early decision and you don't want to do early decision, then that's going to be a regular decision school for you. And understand that, yes, that may influence the competitiveness in terms of admissions, and just kind of, understanding that. And so then maybe you do apply in the early round, but just really being strategic and knowing what the options are and knowing the considerations and the policies around it. And so like some schools are like, if you apply early decision somewhere, you can't apply early action here. And it's like, oh, really? But I thought I could apply early action even if I apply early decision, or maybe it's only certain colleges you can apply to. So just knowing that and being strategic about it. And that's going to really help the fall of senior year to be a little bit more sane when you decide that sooner than later.
Definitely. Yeah. And with this, I want to take you back to financial fit and talk precisely about scholarships and financial aid and what that means.
Yeah.
What would be some of the best strategies that you recommend for navigating these things and understanding true college costs?
Yeah. Well, every college has on their website a calculator for looking at the cost. And I definitely recommend using that to at least get a sense for it. And so that's an important tool to use. The other thing is, when I talk about financial aid, I'm usually referring to need-based, meaning that parents will have to complete a form to say, some financial forms to say if they qualify and they have a quote unquote need. And every college defines that slightly differently in terms of the need. But for scholarships can be based on anything. And I've had families that didn't even submit any financial forms, but their kid got scholarships.
Wow.
And so the thing to understand is that the biggest dollars always come from the colleges. And yes, there are a few outside scholarships, external scholarships that are big dollars, but the biggest dollars that we've seen come usually from the colleges. And so I always say when you get the list right, that is going to support your biggest scholarship dollars. So getting that list right, because financial fit is part of it. So that would be the key thing in terms of getting money for college. There are some additional external scholarships that you can apply for. And I say do those as you can, but always prioritize the colleges because that's going to be the most lucrative and the most efficient. I've had some families who come to me and they're just like, we applied to all these scholarships and didn't get any money. And it's just like, okay, in the fall, with our seniors, we're not prioritizing a $500 scholarship. It's just like, that's just not a good use of time. But focus on that college application because you have a better chance of getting money from there that's more substantial and a better use of your time. And the last thing I'll say is when colleges admit you, they do want you to come there. And so if the financial aspect isn't affordable for your family, it's okay to discuss that beforehand and making it known that you would need more to be supported and thrive there because they do want you to thrive while you're there. And if it's a struggle, if it's something that, your parents and you just can't get on board with, then it's a no. It's a no. And, this has really been on my mind, Sonia, for the last several days because right now I'm having a lot of conversations with families about early decision. And early decision is binding. It means that if you're admitted early decision, you have to go regardless of financial aid. And I don't think that families really understand that all the time. And sometimes it's the parents that don't understand. Sometimes it's the student that doesn't understand. And so I had a conversation with this family and the student is like, I'm applying early decision. And I was like, really? Okay. So let's have a family talk about that. And I'm meeting with the parents and one parent is like, well, we can't afford to pay in full. And the other parent is like, I think this is dumb. And the student is like, I'm applying early decision. And I'm like, what is this? What is this? Did you not hear what your parents are saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, this kid is pretty bent because they're just like, I have a better chance of getting in. And I'm like, yeah, but if this is going to be a hardship, then maybe this isn't the school for you. But they're just so focused on, I like this school. And I'm just like, here's another college that's very similar. And I know that they have scholarship money in their early action. Would you even be open to looking at that? Now, I don't know where they're going to come out with that.
We can just hope.
We'll meet in 2 weeks and I'll see. But yeah, so
yeah,
that's a big decision, but always early decision is a family decision. And I shared with them, my experience with it. And it's just like, I don't have any families who applied early decision who have a scholarship. They're all full pay. And so that's what you should expect if you're applying early decision. So really think about that in advance and have that conversation, as a family to be on the same page about it because the parents have to sign off on it.
That was actually something I was not aware of, that if you apply early decision, it's binding. You have to go whether or not you get that financial aid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you more about your book because you described some personal stories that you had with your own experience with your own child going off to college.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me through what was some of the biggest surprises for you, both as a parent and an expert?
Yeah, probably the biggest surprise, Sonia, was just the emptiness of my kid, my oldest especially, going away to college. And I really didn't think about that as much. And I had, walked through that experience with other clients that I'm working with. Like there was this mom, her daughter was older than my son. And so I never forget, Sonia, her daughter was an only child. And after her daughter had gone away to college, I reached out to her to have coffee just so that we could meet and connect. And when we met, she just said she didn't know what to do with herself. And I just thought, really? And, I'd given her a book to read, and it's a book now I share with nearly all of my families. And she just was having a really hard time. And a lot of it is just the difficulty of letting go, just letting go. And that's something that I now talk with all of my parents about. And especially, in senior year, we have a senior parent community where it's just time just for the parents that I meet with them. And we talk a lot about letting go. And that was something that was very hard for me. And I'm thinking, here I am coaching all these parents, and now I'm just, unable to deal with it. But yeah. And so the crazy thing I did when my oldest went away to college, I was like, something, I'm going to see you every month. And let me tell you, I did that for 4 years. But I had 2 more that were, kind of overlapping in college, and they went to colleges in totally different areas, and I was still seeing everybody once a month. And it worked out well because of the work that I do. And I was already, I still go and vet colleges and summer programs, and I visit with clients. I don't tell them that, when we first start, but I usually end up seeing everybody in person. And so it worked out well, but it was a lot. It
Yeah.
was a
And I
lot
think
to
this is
manage.
universal, really.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
mom when they send off their child to school, especially my aunt,
Yeah.
she's got an only child. I'm an only child as well. And
Uh-huh.
to see, I mean, your only baby go
Yes.
off to college is something that I can't quite imagine.
Yes.
And my mom
Right.
wasn't even having it. She was like, "I'll be super okay." My cousin is 2 years older than me, and when it happened,
Uh-huh.
she started the creeping doubt started
Yeah.
leaning in, and now she's sort of every month leaning in and telling me, "But you will come and see me, right?" And
Right.
I can
Right.
completely understand with this one on you here. And I feel like now is the perfect time to take you onto the Smarter Podcast traditions,
Yeah.
because this will link to how we started the episode. And so I've got
Uh-huh.
3 questions prepared for you.
Okay.
My first one is, if you can go back in time to when you
Mm-hmm.
were 17, my age, right about
Yes.
before applying to college, what would
Yeah.
be one piece of advice in regards to pursuing the right university that would carry you on today?
Probably still casting my net wider. I mean, it was a little bit different, Sonia, of course, when I applied, in that we didn't have technology and I wrote everything by hand. And so I applied to about 16 colleges, and maybe it would have still been applying to a few more. I mean, I got into quite a few of them, but knowing what I know now, probably still casting a wider net. So just to have options. Yeah.
When you were telling me the story about this mom that sent off their her only child to college, you mentioned this book that you recommend to everyone that you
Oh,
told her to
yeah.
read. And
Mm-hmm.
this links on perfectly to my next question for you, because it's related to the world of literature. And it's,
Yeah.
what are your top 2 books that would completely, say, change your perspective on which you view life?
Yeah. The first one is The Anxious Generation.
Mhm.
That's a book that I have given to every family that joins us since the book came out about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we had a book discussion on it for our families, and we're doing another one in October. I think it's a very important book to read, and that's The Anxious Generation. The other book that's really been life-changing for me is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And that's a book that's about mindset. And when I read it, Sonia, the only thing that came to mind for me was, I'm going to run a marathon. And I've been running ever since. And I didn't grow up as an athlete. I had not done any running or anything. But I wanted to do it because a lot of the things he talked about was, the mindset, which running is really about mindset in so many ways, and just the physical discipline and how that then bleeds into everything else discipline-wise. And during that time when I read the book, I was just in a tough place where I had lost a lot of confidence, a lot of who I was and who I had known myself to be. I was just in a bad place, and I needed that just for the mental clarity. And so I think of the running as really having saved me.
Big high five for running the marathon.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
Let's do it. You're going to influence me as well if I get my hands on this book, because I've also been sort of in a love-hate relationship with running and just achieving something so big that right now,
Yeah.
to me at least, would seem physically impossible.
Yeah.
To achieving it and is something so extraordinary. And so
Yeah.
my third question to you is the original traditional here on the SMARTA podcast, where I asked my last guest to leave a question for the next one. But because this episode is all about universities, I decided to do something different and
Okay.
ask you a personal question from me. So what I want to ask you is what matters most from your application? What would mission officers look at first?
Well, I would say it's going to be your high school and the rigor of the curriculum that you've studied in high school. That's going to be first. That is their screening, really, Sonia. And then it's going to be if you meet the test scores, and from there, the essay. Because once you meet that bar, then they can take the time to read your essay and really get a sense for who you are.
Dr. Ellis, I started the podcast in this way. I want to end it likewise. If you can talk directly with the person listening, what would you tell them now as your end message?
I would say for the students who are thinking about applying to university, think about yourself, what your values are, who you are, what you want to do, and always start there, and it's going to be a winning journey for you.
Very concise and exactly what can set the person off thinking and reflecting. Loved so absolutely adore this episode because it helped me understand that actually college is not that intimidating a thing, and it's just a next step.
Absolutely.
And now I know exactly how I can tackle it and approach it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
so much.
See, I said by the end, you're going to feel a lot more calm and confident.
Absolutely. Best of luck with all your next students and their application processes and your own sons moving on to their next milestone in life. And thank you so much for accepting this.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It has been my joy, and I'm just excited to see where you go next and just the pathway that you have ahead of you. So thank you.
Absolutely. That was the episode with Dr. Pamela Ellis. Now, I just wanted to tell you, if you're a high school student listening to this right now, or you've already started your university journey, just listening to this 1 hour talk has made me feel more reassured and calm about everything that's going to happen if you already took the next leap forward, or if you're just about to sit down and have this new milestone in your life, because she broke it down into something that no longer looks intimidating or overwhelming. With that being said, if you've made it this far, why don't you double check that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, follow the show, and rate this podcast episode 5 stars so we can keep making sure to have amazing guests on here that give you wisdom and help you accomplish your goals. And with that, if no one told you this today, I want to tell you and be the first one to say that I believe in your ability to create the life of your dreams. I'm Sonia Marta. You've listened to the SMARTA podcast, and I cannot wait to see you here next Monday. Best of luck for all my seniors applying to college and going and starting off their new lives elsewhere.